What's up, lads? I'm Killian Phillips, and you are watching the China 1-to-1 podcast.
Can we start with the story about my t-shirt?
Go for it.
Morgan and I have similar
t-shirt.
t-shirts. So this Nike one says running. I have one that says, with a ticket says training. Morgan comes into me in the kitchen and goes, "That's my t-shirt." I was like, "No, it's not your t-shirt. It's my t-shirt." I was like, "I could prove it because my t-shirt has writing under it." And I went to pull up my t-shirt and there was no writing under it. And I got slated. But I still wanted to wear it just to have it here today. Just get in
That's
your
my
face with it.
t-shirt.
It was very funny. But now saying it out loud doesn't sound that funny.
Yeah, you did have to be there, but
That's the story?
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like
you didn't deliver with any like gusto, like.
but it's kind of like what you'd see in like a sitcom. It's like he goes to lift the top and there's no writing
That's my
there.
t-shirt.
And then the audience, like the Friends audience, like in the background. But you wouldn't laugh if like if there was a laughing track there. I think
You're
you would,
born daily, anyway.
I think you would have laughed. God damn it! I thought it was well worth kicking off with, but all right.
Well, there we go. We'll just scrape over that.
Why though? Like I thought it deserved it.
Leave it as it was.
Sure.
Well, I thought it was great because I was there, but anyway.
How come jokes can't be delivered like that? Like, what put that in a box to say like you had to be there?
Oh, jeez.
Was it my delivery? Was it my
It was
tone?
partially the delivery and the tone. Yeah,
You have a good theory for comedy. What is it?
it's all about tonation and timing
Tonation and timing.
and like using
Vernacular.
We were literally just looking at a video of Theo Vaughn. Why is he so funny? He just uses the most random but very appropriate words at the right time. And it's all about tone and timing.
Interesting. Well, I'll take the note.
It's not really a theory. It's just kind of what I find funny.
Like most people, though.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Great. That's what I want.
Thanks for listening.
I wanted some sort of clarity. At least, look, I'll take those notes. I'll revert back.
Yeah, you should probably... okay. Are you with us, Daily?
Oh, let's go.
Come on. Talking about the future of Irish football.
Again.
This seems like a common theme. Every 2 years, T1-to-1 podcast comes out. Not good. So, thoughts on the game? The recent game. Last night we played Netherlands, lost 2-1. Respectable result in my opinion. But anyway, what did you think of the game?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go over it.
Very exciting. Like overall, I thought the first 20 minutes were obviously. It reminded me of when Ireland played Canada in the Women's World Cup, getting ahead early against a good side. That's always exciting, especially getting a goal. And arguably, we should have had a goal before that. Obviously, when Adam played the ball across to, who was that chance with? It was like Bennett, yes. Look, dangerous from set pieces, which is obviously something that's always credited with Ireland. But if you even look at the Premier League, the quality of crosses is really poor from corners sometimes. Ireland look like a genuine threat versus other nations, which is great. And people saying that that's an easy thing to do. It actually isn't. Like McLean's balls were absolutely superb. Overall, I thought at spells, you're not going to keep the Dutch down for 90 minutes. Football is always in spells. I thought we had a great first 20 minutes purely because of their lack of quality, not our quality. But even in the French game, at times, although we did get overpowered, and the Netherlands game, I did see there was a consistency with how we built possession. I thought there was, again, evidence of a lack of chance creation, but I would much rather create somewhat decent chances through expansive football rather than, as Ronnie Whelan was saying, to put Shane Duffy up
With
top to
15
the
minutes
last.
to go.
It was 20 minutes.
20 minutes to go. Like, come on, man.
Uh,
When have you ever seen anyone do that?
But yeah, I mean, look, overall, I think when people are talking about Ireland, it's so disappointing to lose football matches. And I think a lot of Irish fans are a lot of Premier League fans. They expect to be their teams winning every single week. It does not work like that. And like to go up against the Dutch or the French and expect results, it's just absurd to me, if I'm being honest with you. Like 2-0 and 2-1 and playing decent styles within time frames, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes was respectable. In my opinion, anyway.
I think you had a big fallout from this series of games, as like you were saying, to expect to get results out of these two games is because we probably haven't gotten enough in the previous games. Like you said, you can't it's hard enough to keep a team down that you're stronger than. They'll always have spells, but naturally, once the Dutch settled themselves, and then France were a whole different street above in the earlier game. So it's kind of one of them where these results seemed a lot worse because of the previous kind of whatever amount of games you want to go by, where people would say that it hasn't been good enough,
Mm. Yeah, in terms of like the qualifiers, I agree with you, G. I thought we played pretty like decent yesterday. Again, I don't know what everyone expects. You go man for man on that pitch, they're better, like all over. Like their back three is ridiculous. How are you supposed to break that down? Like anyone would struggle to really break that down. I know the Dutch were poor, and they were poor for the first 20 minutes. But like you have to be realistic. And again, it's a good point that it probably is a case where it feels like we have to go win that game or get a result, and when we don't, we're so disappointed. And it's okay to be disappointed not win games. Like it's normal. I was disappointed not to get a result, but like you have to be realistic as well. My biggest issue, I suppose, not so much about the game yesterday, is just the response of when we go and play Greece away. We played them away, wasn't it? Or was that home? Yeah, we played them away and we lose 2-1. And it's like, oh, what a disgraceful result. Greece are very good.
Yeah.
First of all, right? Now, I'm going to be honest, I didn't see the game, right?
Yeah,
I think we were working that night, so we didn't see the game. But again, we were speaking about it last night. Greece have like pedigree in the football world. They won the 04 Euros, right? That's not that long ago. I know it's different teams. That's not the point. What we also said is that in their national like league, they've got teams competing in the Champions League consistently. So you're already bringing up that culture through the country. So for us to go out and say, oh, we should beat the Greek, why? Like, where is that like leverage that we have? I just think it's crazy that we think we can go out and just have this entitlement to go win football games. It's just not true.
I think on the case of the Irish fans, though, I think you're looking at that group, you're probably writing off the Netherlands and France, and you're looking at the Greece games like the big game. And when that goes the opposite way, you're thinking, I think it's just when you're constantly getting hit and hit and hit since our peak in 2002, it must be like it is difficult for fans. I think it's different from a coaching perspective, and like obviously we're Irish fans, but when you're a coach or when you're involved in football, it's much different to just being a fan. And I'd say it's the same for sports like, let's say, rugby or basketball, for example, where you're not exactly in this every single day. It's even the case where we know like some staff and players personally, it's much different compared to just being a normal fan. For me personally, I would much rather, with even just my personality and how I like to go about business, but I like to see consistency in strategy and a little bit more expansiveness with how we play. I thought that was very evident from the moment we won the ball back. Ireland is notorious for turning over possession 101 times in a game. Like, I thought that reduction of turning over the ball was much better versus campaigns 3 or 4 years ago. There were some unbelievable phases of football yesterday where the Dutch really struggled. Like, what killed us in that game yesterday, and this is the thing about having great players, is a small little tactical change. They could nick a goal in the first 10 minutes of it, and then bang, it's just cruise control. But I mean, it's easy to go into cruise control when you have players like Frankie de Jong in the middle of the park. He was unbelievable last night.
Just see him in the 94th minute. He had it right in the corner outside the box, and he was like jink and turn. He flicked it to somebody in the clear.
I remember saying to you, see that scoop. It was 1v2. Yeah. Ridiculous.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. And like, even France, for example, every single player they brought on, bar one, I think, has won a Champions League medal. Like, I mean, we're not getting bashed 4-0 out here with no identity.
That's what I was going to say. It's not like if we're like, the Irish always have to fight and so on, and good, like we should, but like, I know we've lost, and I hate losing, but they're respectable losses. Not like we've gone out and been absolutely... Now, you're going to get popped around for half an hour and longer in spells. Man City play some of the best teams in Europe in the Premier League and absolutely pop them around for 70 minutes. Just the way it is. It's football. Like, it's when you get your spell, can you take it? We had a 20-minute spell. We did score within 2 minutes. You'd be disappointed maybe you didn't get 2, but like, again, that's football. Like, they've managed to score 2 against us, one of them being the same thing, a penalty. Again, we discussed it on a different day. Like, Shane Duffy's 2 yards off the back line twice, gets punished for it. One where it goes over, they play through, they get the penalty, and then for the second one is the exact same thing, where he's just so deep and you just played him onside. If he steps 2 yards, 2 of them goals don't happen. and that's just the way it is. But that's the difference. They get those 2 yards, but then they punish. That's it. And they can kill the game off.
Yeah.
Quick as that.
It is. And even if you just compare Shane Duffy, who's had an unbelievable career as well, but versus where Nathan Ake and Virgil van Dijk are now, like, they made that mistake 1 every 1,000, whereas defenders like Shane Duffy, for example, who would be in like the top 4 Premier League clubs or the top 4 clubs in the world, arguably, would make that mistake 1 in every 500 type of thing. So it was just unfortunate that two of them
in one
in the one game. And
Just, that's
at
football
level.
though, like, isn't it? Like, and again, that's no like discredit to Shane Duffy, but that happens in football. Like, and again, when you're playing against such talented players, they make it very evident that you've made a mistake.
Yeah, I think the point you made about obviously playing a more expansive style of football, and I think people are very quick to forget how hard it was to watch Ireland games.
Correct.
For the sake of results, like, I've watched part of that Greece game. I think I've pretty much watched most of the games in the last kind of year or so. Before, I would honestly stick one on for 20 minutes. I remember being like 17, 18, watching games, being like, I'm not watching this. I actually don't understand that people even go to these games. Like, that was kind of my perception, which is like a bad thing to say about your country. But that kind of shift, it's like anything when you're changing like an era. Like when Fergie left United, like David Moyes was essentially always going to like fail, so to speak. Arsene Wenger with what's his name, Emery went in under him. So this like change period or transition period was always going to happen, and probably, I think deep down, was never going to work. Success, it depends what you define success as, qualifying for tournaments, because you're trying to upchange a football culture, and then we're not known for having a football culture like the Dutch or like the Spanish or whatnot. So you're trying to like create it like on the fly. Like Morgan said, we're known as the like fighting Irish kind of spirit, but which is great to a degree. But at the end of the day, you need a football identity, and you would imagine, or you would hope, that this, along with like the infrastructure plans of the FAI, is like hopefully the start of our identity. You would hope, but it's interesting because we do well to keep the ball to a phase or to a stage, and then when we get into the final third, you can just see we lack so much like what's the
Quality.
word? Yeah,
There's also
Bene is
super
effective
effective
at what he does, really, really good. And then apart from that, we've like a lot of Josh Cullens, them kind of players like Alan Brown, who are industrious and do their bit. We just don't have that. Like Jason Knight, in fairness, is probably the closest to it, and he was really good yesterday. But yeah, it's like we're missing like a Jack Grealish, to be honest, or like a Christian Eriksen for Denmark. We're just missing that kind of that player. And then obviously you have Evan coming up. The problem is having a centre forward is they need service, and then players like Eriksen's and all are the servicemen.
that's true.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You're only like, that's another thing that I think people are very quick to forget was, and I agree with you, because Ireland were painful to watch 5 years ago. And
people forgot it too quick how bad.
no,
some of it
honestly,
was.
like, whatever about getting frustrated about like other clubs and other countries, I get frustrated at our own fans very quickly. Like, it's one of the only things that really makes my blood boil sometimes, is people's lack of patience or ignorance towards what football was here a decade ago or 5 years ago. One of the big positives so far over the last 3 years is the integration of players with the new system at the same time. So, for example, I couldn't see players like Jason Knight, Jamie McGrath, or even Evan Ferguson getting a look in a couple of years ago.
Even look at Wes Houlihan, who was a Premier League standard player, only kind of got in and kind of just got in as a winger when we needed a goal. Like, if you had him now, let's say at his peak, when he was kind of 28 to 32, he would be that player, because he would be facilitated more in this system, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, so that was probably our most recent player who was of that. Because in fairness, you would argue he was probably in and around Premier League quality.
Sure, he was playing the Premier League.
Yeah, like around. Oh shit, that was the Norwich actually.
No,
In for a
Norwich,
while.
he
They
was
went,
very
they
good.
went to up and down. Like, that is the thing where that player was never facilitated in previous systems and eras and all that. And like, I'm not trying to say be like an evangelist of football, but like I'll watch a Diego Simeone team, because it's not that you just sit and defend and do this park the bus thing, but watch when they win the ball back, how they have such key principles that they've just literally commit to attack straight away in that short phase of play. But when the play breaks down, they just happen to go back and defend a certain way. That is not what Ireland were like. Ireland would win the ball back, have absolutely no plan, and then maybe string a pass or two together and then just put it in the channel where there was nobody. Whereas like if you're watching Atletico, although they So people say it's the same as that. It's not at all, because if you watch when Atletico win it back, how like aggressive they commit players forward, like that's an attacking strategy. Whereas we honestly, so if anyone disagrees, go watch some of the old games, and even when we were against weaker teams, we were very poor
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even on the football theory side,
with better players, I would argue as well than we have currently.
like on the four functions, there's a lot of ways to play football. Like even if you look at the difference between Man City and Arsenal, like if you just look at the four functions of attacking, the transitions, and then defending, Ireland were competent in the last decade in, I would say, maybe one of them, which would be defending, and that was from the low block. But everything in transitions through TTA and also attacking, there was just zero cohesion, and that really breeds frustration. And to be honest with you, like people would probably say as well that, well, even if you look back a decade ago or 5 years ago, even under Martin O'Neill, Mick McCarthy, there was better results, potential, qualification. And now Martin O'Neill obviously got us to 2016, and they were unbelievable memories. My argument is that where football is today, because it was 8 years ago that is a unsustainable long-term plan. You will qualify for a tournament in every 20 years, but what's going to really guarantee us tournament football every year? That's the key. And I think the only way in modern football to do that now at scale consistently is having a football identity as a foundation that players will see at 5 years of age, and they'll know exactly how to play when they hit 16 to 18, when it really counts.
How they're expected to play anyway.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Like we are potentially like 20 years behind Croatia in the sense that they've had this golden generation, and they'll be their identity now going forward. So that when kids come up, it's like the next Luka Modric. Whereas we've kind of like I wouldn't see a kid come into one of our sessions and be like, I want to be like Ronnie Whelan or whoever. Like it's nearly like we've just this fragmented history. Whereas other countries, it's so clear. Like Croatia, it's I want to be Modric. Like that's their identity, which will then, you would imagine, if they keep their structures okay, they'll just get another crop, and that's kind of what we've got to chase. We've got to like create a golden generation, so to speak, and then you would imagine get to have a good tournament run with some sort of squad that is put together, and then from there, the legacy from that hopefully would be what we aim for.
We could be at the start point for now though, because you look at Evan Ferguson. Evan Ferguson can, and probably, I don't want to say it too prematurely, but can be 100 million plus. Like when was the last time you remember an Irish player being anywhere near that value? Like we were looking at him for United this year going, I wouldn't mind taking him.
Well, Robbie
already.
Keane was excellent.
Yeah, of course. Robbie Keane, yes.
David Duff was
But
excellent.
yes, of course. But like in recent years, like for kids growing up now,
I know what you mean.
they were going around wearing Evan Ferguson's jerseys. When have you seen anyone else wearing a
wasn't
different?
wearing-
I wasn't wearing
a
anyone
jersey
at any stage. I didn't even really know the vast majority of the team. So like, that's a good place to start. And it's not. This is an 18-year-old. He's not just like, oh, he's decent. He's quality, and clearly is. It's a shame that he's out now for a decent length of time because he was obviously catching the form after hat trick or whatever. But he could be your start point, and it's not bad to have a centre forward to work off as your start point and then work backwards.
We've talked about this before about countries having marquee players like Sweden with Zlatan,
Gareth Bale, Wales,
Eriksson with Denmark. It makes a massive cultural difference for football.
huge.
Like
Again,
it gets people on the streets playing.
100%. And again, that's a lot of pressure for an 18-year-old, but he seems to be mature enough and already at a fantastic stage for his age where imagine at 22, a couple of years down the line, where's he going to be at then?
It's Haaland now. Haaland's 22, isn't he?
Haaland's 22, going 23, yeah, I think, or even 23.
Yeah.
But there you go. There's your start point. And again, who knows in the next couple of years? I know prematurely again, but you look at the 21s. 21s are good. A lot of good players in that squad. You just need one of them to have a real standout year, and all of a sudden you've just got like an assistant. It's like Gareth Bale and Ramsey is what it's like. Let's say, again, quality player, don't want to put too much on, but let's say Andrew Moran just comes through.
Yeah.
Then you've got Andrew Moran, Evan Ferguson. All of a sudden it's like, right, you've got goals there. And then all of a
Even
sudden a team just
Smallbone
seems to
kinda
fall
has
into
a bit
place.
of that about
You've
that
still
kind of
got
player.
Andrew, still
Yeah,
very
like
young. Will Smallbone's a fantastic player as well, yeah. So then you've a young crop of a decent back four. Gav's still young. Mark's still young as goalkeepers. Queeveen's still young. And all of a sudden, it's like there's a complete change. It's a complete switch of mindset and mentality around the team. And these are lads that are grown up playing in leagues where the quality is just ridiculous, and they're seeing it. And even you look at Ev with Brighton's gaffer, just he is so educated at his age now, football wise, that again, once you get to a certain stage, we could be in a fantastic foundation.
May I add as well, the 2006 age group was the first age group that went through the 13s League of Ireland. So the 04s are like the first crop of 15s, 17s, 19s. Like even if you look in the 21 squad, a lot of them have League of Ireland experience. Even with Adam Murphy's first call up, Sam Curtis has nearly 100 appearances. Killian Phillips has over 32 senior appearances with Drogheda. It's in the next 5 years is when you'll really see the crop of these players. And like even the amount of players that are now in Europe, for example, who are just going to go under the radar slightly.
And then that 17s team has done well there in the championship. Like
We're doing very well underage now.
Yeah, but even if you look, like we beat Turkey 3-2, the 17s won today. Like 17s up, if you're winning games of 17s up, there's something good going on.
Generally a good crop going on.
Yeah, whatever about 15s and all, but
we were extremely inconsistent prior to that.
Yeah.
The thing is, at younger ages, you just don't know what you're playing England, but
You're just
playing,
potential.
you don't know what England team you're playing.
Yeah.
Whereas 17, it's more like
Just
competitive.
it's Euros. It's Euros time, and again, you look at England's crop that won the underage World Cup,
the 21s.
the 21s. What, like 11 of them were obviously quality at the time. 1 or 2 of them that were still in the mix, and again, that too makes a huge difference to a first team. So like underage wise, we actually do look good. Again, I think we do have a habit of getting too excited about players too quickly. But there is a lot of these are not players playing at a decent level. They're playing top level and are top at that level currently. So again, if we, like I said, if you can just get 1 or 2, 3 really good players in and around the current crop, it'll make a huge difference. Huge difference.
Like, I'm not expecting us to turn around and have Griezmann and Mbappe on the pitch, but the difference that 1 or 2 players would make to that Irish 11 that played against the Netherlands, just as the recent example. Like even if you put Evan in there, first of all, then you add another 2, it's a different conversation. I think all you need is a goal. Like think about football can be won on 1 goal. That's all it needs.
It's honestly, it's like Denmark have qualified for how many tournaments, and if they've honestly, most people obviously they have a good world rank, but most people wouldn't be able to name. Well, maybe now, but 10 years ago wouldn't have been able to name half the team. Bardic, Ericsson, that kind of way. Like you literally just need like a good crop around, and then like just a key player who either can score or assist.
Yeah, they set that foundation then for years.
Especially if you get them in young,
Like you said, like we qualified for, everyone be like, right, let's compare Kenny's reign to previous reigns. Right, we qualified for Euro 2016. Fantastic, and it was great. Like because you're in a major tournament. Being in a major tournament is never not entertaining. So that was fantastic, but there's no longevity with the way we played or the style, or it was never going to happen. And Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane done a great job with that tournament, because we ended up, was it quarters we got to?
Last 16.
Last 16 was it? And France, and again, it was very closely contested France game. It was a penalty, wasn't it, with Griezmann, and then he scored again. And Griezmann was arguably the best player in that tournament. Like he was absolutely outrageous. So
he was world class.
So you're going to get turned over. Like that's the nature of football. But when we're talking about like longevity and like what is the future of Irish football? Like what would we say now in the short term? Like what is the immediate thing we need to do for long-term success? I think the immediate implications are not good in terms of the results, but the foundation of bringing in a lot younger players and trying to play a better style of football is definitely a much better blueprint for future
like the next
reference.
The next manager is massively going to benefit from having like a squad of players who've now played 10 plus games, like
and even
like
just been in the
Jason
camp.
Knight, Nathan Collins, even at that. Like,
My question would be to people, if you want to get rid of Kenny, what do you want to bring in?
that's the thing.
People want results, right? And again, it's a results-based business. I understand that. But the same people that are going to be saying, "Oh, we need to win games," are going to give out when we bring in, let's say, a pragmatic style, and we just go back to the exact same thing we were previously doing, of kicking it and chasing it, and we might win a couple of games, but like in 10 years' time or 5 years' time after that,
But it's not a long term.
what do we do again?
Yeah, it's not a long term play.
What do we do again?
That's
Same stuff.
That's my argument with people all the time. Like people are so quick to go Kenny out, but what's Ireland in? So what are you going to bring in? You're not, like, are you going to bring
It's
in?
funny because
the Deserby?
everybody is so against. Like I've actually heard today someone saying Damien Duff could be an option because he coaches a Shells team who would be I don't want to say under resourced, but compared to the other League of Ireland teams, wouldn't be the strongest squad, but he gets results. Like, so the whole idea of the Irish team not being the strongest. And then people are like, oh, not another League of Ireland manager. So basically, not another like Irish manager. I'm kind of thinking,
Does that go against everything we're trying to like do?
yeah, like most international teams, most success comes from having a manager from the country. Like, no manager has ever won the World Cup for a country that isn't their own one. So
That's actually a good way of thinking about it with Damien Duff. Like, does that correlate to international football? I'm not sure, but I mean, it's a good way of thinking about it.
But like, people are like, oh, new manager, right? Do we bring in like a Trapattoni again? Do we go like with a foreign manager, or do we try find an Irish manager? But like, how many Irish managers are available that aren't like these League of Ireland managers who everyone gives out they don't want? That's the reason they didn't want Kenny in, because he was a League of Ireland man. Like, I don't name a few Irishmen, like Chris Hutton. Don't know if he's actually managing at the minute.
He's with an international
Martin
team.
O'Neill.
He's with another international team.
He's with
With an African team, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
Oh, that's gonna wreck my head. Yeah,
Let's get that. Let's get that up. Pull that up, Jamie.
I was thinking
But who
Graham
else?
Potter would be a great manager, but he wouldn't come
Yeah.
near Ireland. But
Who?
he turned down Leon. Graham
Graham
Potter
Potter.
would be great, but he
He'll go
turned
to, like,
down
a Palace or Fulham or something.
Yeah, he turned down Leon after they got rid of the ex
with
French
Ghana.
manager.
Ghana, that's it.
Ghana, yeah. head
Ghana, a
coach
great
Ghana.
side though.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to be with Ghana?
Yeah.
Ghana's a great nation.
Yeah,
Great nation.
quality. Back to the future. Sorry, I think again we've only changed the foundation of the underage structure here, giving much more exposure to the players in and around the west of Ireland, the north of Ireland, which is great. Even like for example with Derry, with Trent Doherty, for example, I don't know if those opportunities would have been present for players like him 10 years ago, getting over to Liverpool. Like I remember we played against him at 13s. You would never hear about those players, but even you had that ignorance about players when you played as well. I remember you saw
Definitely.
a fella from
Aidan
Sligo.
Keane.
Was it?
Aidan Keane came up.
Oh, yeah.
We had it was the Emerging Talent Trial,
Where's he
I
from?
think.
Is he Go or something?
Sligo.
Is he from?
Is he Sligo?
I think Sligo, I
well, I
think.
know he was playing for Sligo, but I can't remember where he's from. Anyway, he's not from Dublin. And he came up and I was like, who's that? Like as if I was anything.
Mo
but like
Biggie.
you're like, who's that fella? And then I see him, I was like, right. He scored a hat trick in like 20 minutes. I was like, right, these lads are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you just get woken up very quickly. But again, that was my ignorance, because us playing, the only time we played someone outside of like Dublin was the All Ireland, and they always seemed like the biggest games in the world, because the All Ireland's was the biggest competition to win at the time. But also, anytime a Dublin team came, everyone else wanted the scalp, so
Yeah,
it was always a huge game. So you couldn't really tell how good everyone was, because they were just so up for everything. Like if they didn't perform that day, they were poor because they were so roiled up. But when they come individually and come down and play with it, you're like, oof, Jesus, they are good.
But yeah, like that's the thing. These players get much more exposure now. The theory would be that my only fear that with the League of Ireland structure is that like the people that put it in place are now gone. I'm afraid that if a couple of things don't go right, that the house of cards will come down a little bit. But I know
surely they
you're in
can't
it
go-
every week.
surely they
From
can't
what
go
you've
backward.
seen, surely the quality's been better. Like I've been in a few year games this year, and I've been to some other games, and the quality of football is just much better. Like even I would say that the culture around it is better.
And that's like contact time and all as well. And
Yeah.
like it's massive.
And also,
Um,
the most basic stuff, we've been singing about this for years. You need an academy system that leads towards your national league. Like if you want to improve your national league,
National team, like
no, it's in the national
sorry, the
league, like your
yeah,
actual
yeah.
national league. So your first division, Premier Division. You need underage teams. Obviously, having something to play towards, so an end goal. That's so important.
There's actually a bit of a problem with the league. Well, it's a good problem to have, where the likes of them players like Sam Curtis, Adam Murphy are coming in, doing really well, but then they're gone by the time they're like 19, and then all of a sudden the league has this weird age gap where it's like a high age profile,
Yeah.
and then there's just this big gap in the mid 20s, and then it's just the young lads breaking in. So like that's a good problem to have, so to speak, because you're getting to see. Well, some people would argue you never would have seen that player play in the league before, because they would have been gone by 15, 16. But it's kind of that weird like talent drain where they come in, get their 100 games, and then they're gone, and we're kind of like trying to race people back into that gap. Like, whereas you would imagine there'll be a couple more with the National League, and I think the problem is, let's say you're an underage team in the Premier Division, and you might not break in because it's tough to break into first team football. You might end up in the first division because that's just a natural kind of fall of things. And then it's like, where do you go after that? 'Cause there's only 2 leagues at the end of the day, and that not even 2 professional leagues. So the big thing probably is this. You'd imagine this third division comes in, hopefully is decent. We get more semi-pro teams, naturally more professional teams, coupled with this infrastructure plan that's hopefully coming in, coupled with then having a decent enough national team crop in terms of that kind of like Evan's age, 18 to like 23, 24. Like all them things over 10 years, you would imagine would eventually just filter into more competitive underage sides at Euros and World Cups and all that.
Yeah.
And that will naturally run its course. Well, hopefully would be the kind of way it goes.
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, I'm going to talk about two things. The first one is definitely training facilities. That's one big thing. That is a huge difference. I know we've had Carl Lam and Rory on, and they obviously, I asked the question just like, you know, what would you change? Like, it's always the big questions, a big answer is like facilities. Such a broad answer, but training facilities and giving access to coaches, quality coaches with quality players will only in turn, like that's to me is the lowest hanging fruit of having quality facilities, better pitches, definitely more contact time. And when I mean by facilities, I don't mean just like, you know, cool 5-star buildings. I'm talking about giving the infrastructure for people to actually take full-time roles, create correct curriculums, etc. But coupling that with one of the big advantages that Ireland has, and it's evident in the women's game, is access to senior football at an early level. Now, I think this is kind of what you were saying, Gary. It's that economic problem where the wealth kind of accumulates to the top. It's the same with the top players. They'll get all the fruits of that. So the likes of Adam and Sam and these sorts of players, they'll play every minute. They will get a lot of benefit from that. And they've got a great chance in the UK because, you know, why would West Ham give an 18-year-old with 0 senior appearances a chance when they could, you know, spend a little bit of money on the likes of a Sam Curtis, for example? It's kind of what they done with Jesse Stapleton. That's why I used the West Ham reference. But again, if all the wealth accumulates to the top, then the poor get poorer. And that's the problem with some of the other kids that just can't make the gap and they'll drop out of the sport immediately.
Because there's not enough safety blankets. There's Premier Division, First Division.
Yeah.
Let's Senior League, essentially amateur football.
But if the conversation is about what's going to make Irish football greater, if greater means competing with your first team in international tournaments, then getting exposure to younger players playing senior football at a domestic level is definitely a good way to go about it. And that's something that we never had.
Interesting on facilities. I'm kind of segueing here because you mentioned it. Well, on my A license, they gave a presentation like this big.
Who's they?
Who was it?
Was it the FAI or was it an individual
it's
person?
The FAI, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was a big kind of like analysis, I suppose, of the academy system at the minute and comparing it to like the UK and all.
Cool.
And like one was clubs, number of facilities they use for training per week. And like it's mad, like the amount of clubs that have to use like 6 different facilities for all their teams and whatnot. Like
Here,
in Ireland, like, and it's crazy. Like I actually don't think there was one that was in one facility for training and games. I think it was
Surely Rovers, no?
yeah. Well, maybe it was one. I just don't remember there being one. I think that was the whole point of the thing. But yeah, it was mad. Like that. Some clubs literally 6+ venues across all their different national league teams at underage.
yeah, when you say facilities, the first thing that came into my head was like people taking the wrong assumption that like having ice baths and like cryotherapy chambers and all. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having, rather than one Astro, having 3 so you can train year round and also not train on a quarter of a pitch.
Correct.
That's another.
That's
big
a huge
one.
thing.
Yeah,
like that's huge to even have a half where you can actually work on, to broadly speak, tactical things and you know your phases of play.
But no, not
That's
even
a
with that
huge
more.
difference.
Like quarter of a pitch, there's a massive difference between a quarter of a pitch and half a pitch for 9-year-olds. Because if you've half a pitch, now this is a coaching thing, but like if you have 9-year-old kids and you're in a quarter of a pitch and you need to move cones around, you're wasting 5 minutes to correct the session. You're wasting another 5 minutes trying to calm them down. If you multiply that 10 minutes across 50 weeks, that's a huge amount of contact time.
Do that across years.
But I mean, like, that's the thing. And people aren't thinking about these sorts of things. I'm not saying you should have half a pitch for 9-year-olds to do shape work, but it definitely allows consistency. And even having half a pitch for even like under 9s, for example, and having the ability to take in more players and train them better with 5 coaches, that is a huge difference. And these are just low-hanging fruit. Like, and I think clubs now are trying their absolute best by themselves to get their own grants, to go through their own councils. I have no idea how and this is why I'm going to put a disclaimer there. I don't know how other governing bodies fund their underage clubs. Like, for example, in France, did they go to Lyon and say, we're going to give you X million for your underage development? I don't know. But surely, on the finance point of view and the way that football is a business, there has to be ways to generate more income to reinvest and get return.
Yeah, that's a massive point on the pitches. Like I coached against, or no, sorry, it was one of the lads that's chatting on the course. I think it was, or did I coach against him this year or last year? But anyway, I remember chatting before the game. He was just asking me where we train. I was like, oh, we've this Astro here we use, and he was like, and I was asking him, and he was like, they were sharing a quarter of the Astro with like, and there was probably 3 other teams on the Astro, and I'm just thinking, like, this isn't like under 9s football. This is like 15, 17s League of Ireland. Like that's like not an optimum way to be training like in a quarter. I get like that's just it's what clubs have to do. Like you said, if it's one Astro compared to 3, the difference is
No doubt, man.
ridiculous.
But I mean, like, think about like other clubs, and this is what I mean by facilities. And can we get into this a bit more about facilities? Because when people hear facilities, they don't think about like what's under the radar. If you have all your teams in one place, it's a culture thing as well. Because a 9-year-old sees an 18-year-old
100%.
and is thinking, and like even the difference between like staying back and watching the game, like your 18s are playing at 9 o'clock. I'm just done training. I'm gonna go and watch that. I'm gonna go listen to the manager, hear what he's saying. He's gonna know my name. I'm going to be able to talk to other parents, other coaches, gather more of a family experience. And I've seen, like, when you went over to play Liverpool, for example, in Kirby, the difference. You go watch your team play, and then I saw Raheem Sterling play for the 18s, like that, in walking across a pitch. Like, if I go to see your team play in UCD, for example, there's 101 things going on. Now, you're lucky with the facilities. But I mean, like,
on campus,
it's just it's just random sport. Imagine, like, the perfect world of being able to go watch your game, stay back, watch another game, and then converse with 101 people.
And not be on the same pitch where the ref has to quickly turn over oh, you can't warm up on the pitch because we're playing a game and you've got this amount of space to warm up in. But it sounds like we're moaning, but it's so important. Like,
these are the things that people aren't thinking about, because the culture and the intangible things about facilities is what really counts. And I've been in clubs where it's been like a one pitch facility. But even that was great because the synergy between staff and players, and like if I needed a couple of players from an age under, we could take them up. If another manager wanted a few players from me, they were gone. That connection was already there, and it's very important to train with older kids. That's one thing that Home Farm done really good when you were there, was that thing where you had to 1 day a week you train with the age above. That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that was good. I really enjoyed that as well.
But Home Farm, to be fair to them, have at the time had an unbelievable facility because they had 3 or 4 pitches.
They had the 3 small cages essentially, and then they had the pitch out the back, and
much better than most.
And then the actual main pitch was gorgeous.
And at your age, that was huge. And there's no doubt Home Farm's history and the players that they've produced. And again, like if you're looking at top facilities, but even with Shamrock Rovers, for example, in Roadstone, like the grass pitch quality there is insane.
Yeah,
it's top standard.
Yeah, but even like the point you made on like teams not even be able to take more players now because the facilities are stretched. Like we were chatting to a couple of people over the summer, and like you forget Ireland as well, as I'd imagine is quite a young person. I don't know, probably isn't the population. Never mind that. But they were saying how they were getting new people trying to come into their under 8s, under 9s teams, and they literally just have nowhere else to put them when they're training in the winter because they've won Astro. Like it's crazy. Like the difference if you gave most of them clubs are like 1,000 kids and a second Astro, like the difference would be ridiculous. Even like I know Francis, for example, put the front pitches now in Astro as well, and the difference that made where all them small sided teams don't have to train on the 11-a-side Astro. So the 11-a-side teams either get more of a slot or more space when they're on the slot or whatever it is. Like the difference, even just putting a 7-a-side Astro beside the main Astro is
clubs are getting very
difference.
innovative.
And
they're doing all they can. And like you've seen that, like Francis, for example, and there's probably 101 clubs that I will never see across Ireland on the West, for example, or in the Midlands that are doing unbelievable work.
Some of the country facilities we played in Galway this year. Oh, I keep forgetting the name of the club. Oh,
it wasn't like Salt Devon, right? Was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that side of Galway. It was like the near side. It was near Headford, I think it was near or something. But the facility was deadly, lovely Astro, lovely grass pitch beside it, like, and it was like out of the middle of nowhere. I'd never heard of it before. But some of the country facilities are deadly.
Yeah. But like, the majority of them are self-funded or council-funded through years of application work or like sponsorship.
And some of it Delaney funded back in the day to get his votes.
Well, that as well. No doubt. There's corruption in every organisation. But,
Bar 2-1-1.
On top.
Except for the coffees.
The what?
The coffees.
The coffees. I was messing.
Like, is there something going on there?
He pointed at me. I was like, what?
Or the monster cans. Well, Gary gets me a coffee in the morning. And I was thinking that's definitely a chess move.
Oh, I like it.
I'll get that with my own personal card. I'll have
Oh.
Do you? Yeah.
That is false.
He does. I checked the accounts today.
Okay, he's checking up on me and all, Finn. This fella.
Check the accounts like 2-year-old.
I still see it.
Just says, gotcha, Gary.
I questioned you on a few small purchases.
Oh.
Business, baby. Well, you're talking about getting lunch out when I'm at work. That is not anything bar a business expense. Cut this from the record.
Good.
Well, Keemalidi was in on Tuesday and he said he misses these podcasts.
Well, I'm happy for you, Keano. It's back.
It's back.
But people enjoy the Bronson ones sometimes.
Yeah.
This is Bronson. This is factorial.
Yeah, well, definitely facilities is single-handedly the lowest hanging fruit. But
So
again,
money.
but do you know what also I found very funny? When people say like, oh, that facility costs like 18 million. I was like, 18 million is nothing to some businesses or to some companies. It's just a number. Like, I don't understand. This might be naive of me, but like, it's always baffling to me how there isn't better allocation towards things like facilities that are just instant return on investment for the community.
Yeah. But it's not even like an
But I'm not
Irish
a
thing, 'cause
politician.
other sports do it well. Like, have you ever seen like the gas centre of X?
But see, that's the
Excellence
thing,
not-
isn't
they're
it, though? Like,
incredible
does the
things.
guy not get substantial funding, though?
Oh, yeah.
In comparison, I would
yeah.
presume it does.
don't
I wish
know.
I had the facts and figures, but I presume
Well,
it does.
the rugby does it well, and I would imagine they kind of were clever about how they done it.
The
With
culture in
schools and all.
rugby, you
Yeah.
know, is fantastic through schools.
So it can be.
There's
done,
a way to
obviously.
do
It's
it.
not like
Oh,
it's like,
100%.
oh,
There's a way
nobody
to
in
do it.
Ireland has
There is a way to
facilities,
do it. Yeah.
You know?
May I add though, with the rugby thing, the pool of rugby players across the globe is very small. So if
Compared
you're going to be
to football.
competing in it, you're going to have a decent chance.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
that
as
might be
in,
a bit
like-
As in, like,
ignorant.
who
Yeah.
actually plays rugby
There's
across
less-
the
there's
world?
less
Yeah,
black
of course,
people.
of
Yeah,
course. And football's the
and also
world
may I
sport.
add, like the genetics to play rugby is in another like 0.001 percentile. So if you get all those people within the same bracket, I can't imagine the standard gap is going to be massively different if there's good facility. Ireland, Romania, for example, is a huge example
In
of
the
that.
World Cup, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
if you
with
make
your rugby knowledge, love that.
But if you make a substantial jump over a decade in a sport like rugby, the gains are exponential.
Oh,
Yeah.
You go
Oh,
from
yeah.
getting bashed by New Zealand every day to then actually winning 3 out of 4 games or something.
Yeah.
Because do you know what I'm trying
You
to
close
say?
the gap. No, you close the gap
You
quicker.
close the gap much
100%,
quicker. It's
yeah.
much
There's
different
less-
for a
there's
global
less
sport
people.
like
Yeah,
football.
there's there's less. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. What you're
Less
saying.
friction.
Now, again, that's a very high level. And don't be butthurt, rugby fans. I appreciate the work you're doing. But I'm just saying.
But even sorry on that point, because remember Luxembourg beat us and everyone was going mad, and you're kind of. Like, I remember watching the game, going, they're just better. They've got players who are just better than ours. Like, that's just. I know people would say it's a freak result because 10 years ago it never would have happened, but like, we have no idea what. For all we know, Luxembourg have thrown 100 million at it every year. They've developed a lot of full-time academies, and now they've got these great teams.
Yeah,
coming
we
through.
can be very ignorant.
Yeah, like-
from surface level. Again, there is things going on, but speaking very high level, we are very ignorant to other teams. Like, what gives us the right to go out and beat the likes of Luxembourg? I know, yeah, on paper, we're Ireland, but like, no, what actually,
Like,
what actually gives us the right to beat them?
Bar the last couple of years, probably since the introduction of the underage national league, which was what, 4 or 5 years ago.
From 13s.
Yeah.
The first year
5
was
years ago it was, wasn't it?
oh god, man, 2017.
But like, so from 2017
What was I gonna
till
say it
like
was?
2010 or like, what was the last, like, we probably stood still
2018.
in the sense that like other countries have constantly progressed and we kind of just froze for a kind of period of time. Didn't really do much with our own domestic league.
A lot of
kinda-
unrest as well up above.
yeah.
and so on.
like, we stood still with other countries have like, and we're seeing the downfall of that now, where we're just like,
Yeah, well, definitely in the John Delaney
competing.
era, there was regression on an economic point of view and also a culture point of view. Again, those intangible facts. Like, even just to conclude this podcast, from what I've seen in Kenny's reign in 3 years, we've had, a major change in the C-suite, major changes in our underage structure, where we're only really getting the fruits now, a new identity and style, a long managerial reign of 3 years, which there has been some consistency, and in my opinion, it is a net positive, bar the win ratio, which people are always fascinating about. But even if you look at some of those games, at the Portugal game, the France game, the Netherlands game, These are big nations you're playing,
huge nations.
and you know, we were in the race.
Managing is not that easy.
Yeah.
It's really not.
I think where Irish fans have the biggest issue, and again, I am an Irish fan, obviously, but where the generalization of the Irish public have the biggest issues when we go out, it's not the Portugal games, it's not them games, it's the Luxembourgs, it's the Maltas, it's them teams where we're like, oh, why can't we beat them? And again, the general issue is scoring goals, creating chances on a broad scale. But when you actually dig into it, there's so much more to it,
I think,
like we've discussed.
yeah, like it's one of them where another manager could come in and get better results with the current crop and kind of prove what I'm about to say wrong. But I think in 10, 15 years, we'll look back and like thank what was done in the sense of bringing through a lot of players, just playing them, because most of the managers who would be more results based would not play them as much, bar like the top players in that crop. And I think that the next manager, or maybe the manager after that, will reap the benefits from it. So sometimes that can be it. I could be proven wrong though by the next manager, but
There was no Guardiola City without Mancini's City.
it's a very good point.
Nice, G.
Yeah, so we're not at the next year tournament. Well, we can still get in technically, but
I'm positive. I'm Kenny in. I'm Irish
positive.
football in. And this identity, whatever this is, at the early seeds, I'm behind it.
We're
I like
very
it.
early doors, and I'm right with you.
Yeah, I put on the TV yesterday,
right with you.
and I was excited, and I didn't feel frustrated. Now I was pissed off with like stupid things like heading the ball, like Doherty heading the ball down and stuff like that. But I mean,
that's football.
Technical errors, that's football.
you know, these men are out there competing. I'm just a fan at the end of the day, and I'm going to back them.
Way to finish.
That's me.
Yeah, positivity wins out, man. Did you hear that? We out.
Yes, sir.
Yup.